cameras off. And exactly. So please feel to, if you want to keep your camera off, that's absolutely fine. If you want to put your camera on, I totally understand, and we will manage that accordingly. Not much housekeeping this morning because we're in this virtual world, but we will be having questions and answers later. And so we'll do that either by putting your hand up, your Zoom hand. You may wish to put your hand up in the conventional way, or alternatively, please feel free to put it in the chat. I will do my best to keep a very close eye on that, but if I do miss you for any reason, please do highlight that to me, and we'll make sure we cover as many questions as we possibly can. So my name is Robert Elliott. I am Director of Business Development and Engagement here at the Herefordshire and Worcestershire Chamber of Commerce. And I would not be doing my job this morning if I didn't highlight to you that our quarterly economic survey is live, and you still have just under a week to complete that. It takes 5 minutes to complete that survey. And for reasons I'll explain very shortly, it is vital. The information is absolutely vital that you put in that survey. The other thing I would be failing to do my job if I didn't mention was on the 7th of October, we have our Expo, and this is a face-to-face event where we will be connecting different businesses from right across the region. So please look out for the details for that. And there's some fantastic stands available at some brilliant prices to get your business noticed and to get face-to-face again. But one of the reasons I mentioned the QES was because recent surveys have very much highlighted, and the QES is one of those, the quarterly economic survey is one of those, has highlighted a number of different challenges for businesses. And this has been across our region, across both counties, and also across multiple sectors. And so when we get that information, we take notice of it and we try and take action. And one of the actions that we take is that we partake in lobbying with the British Chamber of Commerce, which enables us then through the British Chamber to talk to Parliament, to talk to government. And one of the things that has been instigated as a result of recent surveys is this event. And we are absolutely delighted that we are able to hold this event today in conjunction with the Department of International Trade to be able to listen to the state of the nation, if you like, but also to give you the opportunity to have a question and answer session. And we were to be joined by Graham Stewart, our Export Minister, but unfortunately he's been taken to other duties for this particular day. And shortly I will introduce you to Ian Harrison, who is the Head of Exports for the Midlands Regions for the Department of International Trade. Before I introduce you to Ian, Graham Stewart has kindly prepared a video for us to say hello and just to follow up on what would have been his attendance here today. So with no further ado, I'm going to ask Arjun if he could load up that video and play that to us, and then it'll come back to me, and then I'll be able to introduce you to Ian.
Thank you, Robert, for that kind introduction, and thanks for inviting me along to speak today at what I know is a very busy time for your members. I know that my colleague, Robert Jenrick, Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government, recently reopened the revamped Shell store in Hereford, set to become home to 25 businesses. Now, it's great to see that business appetite for which the region is well known being as strong as ever. And I was particularly pleased that a building with such rich history is being repurposed to provide 21st century opportunities for business and employment. Now, throughout the world wars, the iconic roof of the Shell store held ammunition that was vital to the war effort. I hope that the innovation and enterprise that it will foster in its new life will help us overcome the challenges we face today. Because there's no denying that the last couple of years have presented us with some significant challenges for the global trading system and the world as we know it. Because it's not all doom and gloom. These shifting sands have in many cases highlighted, accelerated and even created enormous opportunities for British business. With a fast-moving global trading landscape, we now have a unique opportunity to recalibrate and reinvigorate our relationships around the world, and in doing so, bring trade, jobs and prosperity home to these shores. It's an opportunity I think we've got to grasp with both hands, and I'm pleased to say that we are making great strides already. Britain is back as a sovereign trading nation for the first time in almost 50 years. We're building bridges with old friends and new partners and sculpting our future as an outward-facing, trailblazing, free trading nation, a truly global Britain. So far, we've already agreed trade deals with 68 countries, plus the EU, covering £730 billion worth of UK bilateral trade in 2020. But this year, we're going even further, building closer links with fast-growing and like-minded nations around the world, so as to catapult the best of British exports into markets worldwide. Negotiations with Australia and New Zealand are well advanced. Of course, the agreement in principle has been made with the Australians. We'll be picking up talks with the new US administration and starting negotiations on more advanced agreements with our friends in Canada and Mexico. And of course, we've formally applied to join the CPTPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's a huge Pacific free trade area, covering some of the world's fastest growing economies and representing almost £9 trillion of GDP in 2019. By coupling global Britain with the world's most vibrant high growth economies, we're not only securing opportunities for our businesses today, but we're seeking to build a strong UK economy for tomorrow. And in taking back control of our trade policy, it's important to this government that the opportunities and benefits of international trade are enjoyed by every part of this United Kingdom. That will be key in creating jobs, levelling up the country, and building back better, of course, from the pandemic. And that's why, alongside the ambitious programme of free trade agreements I've already mentioned, we're also upping our trade support initiatives here at home. Because research shows that businesses who export are more productive, they're more profitable, and more innovative than their non-exporting peers, not to mention more resilient. So all the things you'd most like your businesses to be, they tend to be more like that if they're exporting businesses rather than non-exporting businesses. So our message as a government couldn't be clearer. Let's grow through exports. At the Department for International Trade, we're working hard on a refreshed and ambitious export strategy to reflect this new global trading landscape and best support our current and potential exporters. From Chase vodka to G-Tech vacuum cleaners, your region's a well-known hotbed of innovation. And I think global consumers deserve to sample the top quality goods and services produced there. That's why the government is committed to providing the practical, promotional and financial support businesses need to realise their export potential, no matter what stage of the exporting journey they're on. We have a network of international trade advisors in England who work in lockstep with DIT specialists in 119 countries, including, as we said, DIT Midlands overseas champions in Africa, Europe, Latin America, India, and Eastern Europe, to provide market insights, identify commercial opportunities, and work to break down trade barriers. Now, I know many local businesses have already had great success in working with our DIT, Herefordshire, and Worcestershire ITA team, based as they are at the Chamber. There's Energy SME Olteco, who received business travel funding that resulted in orders worth more than £150,000. Of course, that's just the beginning. To sports micro-business Axie Ski, who benefited from guidance on markets and e-commerce strategy and are now exporting to 17 markets around the globe. In the last year, DIT has increased the number of our trade specialists in the West Midlands by 45%, bringing in additional advisors in key areas such as e-commerce, cyber, and food and drink. There's also our Export Academy, which offers a range of webinars, workshops, and virtual events to support smaller businesses looking to export. Since its pilot launch last October, 414 Midlands businesses have been through the Academy, and we're looking forward to supporting a great deal more. We're currently running a programme for the Midlands and East of England, so do please take a look and join in. If you search for Great Export Academy, it should be first on the list. In terms of financing, we launched a £6.3 million Midlands Internationalisation Fund last year. This will provide 1,250 small businesses with grants to internationalise. And we have our world-leading export credit agency, UK Export Finance, which is on hand to support companies looking to trade around the world, ensuring no viable export fails for lack of finance. In 2019-2020, UKEF helped 339 UK companies export to 69 countries around the globe, 77% of those being SMEs, but with thousands, possibly tens of thousands in the supply chain for those products. So the expertise and support is already there. I really would encourage anyone who's interested in starting exporting or thinking about taking their exporting journey further to reach out to the DIT team, find out what more is available. With a successful vaccination campaign well underway and a roadmap in place for the end of COVID restrictions, we're in a strong position to take advantage of the opportunities emerging to build economic prosperity here in the UK. I know that the unique entrepreneurial spirit of the people in this part of the world means that they'll be at the front of the queue to embrace these opportunities. Here at DIT and across HMG, we want to work with local industries to spearhead an export-led, investment-led and jobs-led recovery from coronavirus that delivers for the whole country. And I know my team are looking forward to hearing your views on how we can achieve all that together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arjun. If you could bring us all back, that would be superb. There we all are, fantastic. Before I go any further and introduce Ian, I wonder if the DIT team could please extend my thanks and the Chamber's thanks for the Minister's, the time he took to prepare and deliver that address. Some fantastic references to some of our local businesses and also obviously to the efforts of the team here in the Midlands. And we are very appreciative of his time and effort in doing that. So I thought I would like to record that before we go any further. So thank you very much. And reference there of the Shell store and businesses who are joining us from the Herefordshire area. There is an event on Friday at the Shell store at 8 o'clock where Herefordshire County Council are championing all local businesses. So still not too late to get involved. Pass over to you now, sir, to give us the view from your department here in the Midlands, and then after your words we'll go for some questions and answers. So over to Ian Harrison. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Robert, and thank you all for the invitation. The students amongst you will notice that I'm not Minister Stewart. Minister Stewart would have liked to have been here, but unfortunately has been called away, and as you will all know, there are quite a few issues that are kind of bubbling along in the House and in other areas. So I'm Ian Harrison, and I head the export function here in the Midlands. I'll just sort of introduce a couple of colleagues just before I get into it. I just want to say a few words and then look forward, as the Minister says, to answering your questions. I'm joined today by a colleague from London who is Deputy Director for Export Services, Sue Bishop, who is going to join us today and may sort of come in on a few questions. I'm also joined by colleagues that are based in Hereford and Worcestershire Chamber, Mark Armitage and Alison Avery, who are trade advisors that work and support us. And they're flanking the chief exec of the chamber, which I feel duty bound to mention Sharon. So hi, Sharon. Thank you for the invitation. And I just want to sort of say a few words, a little bit about what we do here, and what I kind of do in the Midlands. So from my point of view, a lot of my work is really around export promotion. And that's making sure that we promote our services across the Midlands. We do a range of activities. We do a series of events. We do trade missions. We support things like the Export Academy, which I can talk about later on. And we have a bank of expert advisors, of which Mark and Alison are a part of the local team based at the Chamber, who provide dedicated guidance and advice on your developing your export journey at whatever part of the export journey you are on. And that's underpinned by a range of support programs that we have available. So the Minister touched on the Export Academy, which is a program that is aimed at sort of new or reactive exporters, where we have an online program of between around 10 to 15 modules, which is sort of very much plug and play, and takes you through a series of steps in terms of beginning and sort of developing your export knowledge capability to then do business overseas, and that's flanked with export academy advisors who help you to work in a group on a group basis and also on an individual one-to-one basis to try and build that sort of knowledge and capability. And we then sort of graduate to sort of more expert advice, which is where Mark and Alison will come in, and other colleagues at the chamber who will provide you with strategic advice and guidance, but also pull in our global network. And the Minister mentioned 100 offices in 119 countries, and we are based in embassies, commissions, and consulates across the world. And wherever you find those offices, we have inevitably either Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office people, or more likely Department of International Trade people that are housed in those offices that are looking out for UK business. And actually, I am very luckily with the levelling up agenda, I'm fortunate to also have offices in 5 markets that are really have a Midlands remit. So these are really extensions of our team that are based in Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, India, Europe, and Eastern Europe and Central Asia, to really look at opening up specific opportunities for Midlands business. That is their job focus and their job remit. So we're very excited about that. And in addition, we have specialists, sector specialists across the Midlands, as well as to complement the sort of expert service that you get from Alison and from Mark. We also run a range of funds that help you get into market. So what I always tend to do is to say that on sort of platforms is that what we tend to do on the sort of the regional basis is we help you to understand your business opportunities overseas. We help you get there, and then when you're there, we help you execute in market. And that's simply what we do, and that's what we kind of geared up to do. We also plug in at sort of the central and the civil service side, also plug into the rest of the department. So the Minister talked about export finance, UK export finance. We also facilitate trade policy negotiations, now including moving towards Europe as well. We also look at export controls, and we also importantly promote great British expertise globally, as well as part of the Great Campaign and also as part of Great Global Britain. So there are just a few things that we do, and we also work with close with other government departments on related issues that are policy that kind of intersect, if you like, with the overall trade message. So I won't say any more. I think the valuable bit is, as the Minister has indicated, is to hear your questions and to see what's on your mind. So I'll sort of kind of wrap it up there, and then sort of pass back to you, Robert, to see whether there are any questions.
Great, thank you very much, Ian. Yeah, thank you for that. And testimony to some of your trade missions overseas. I think somebody on the call, Ellen's on the call, and you both were out in Chicago flying the flag a few years ago.
Oh, yes.
She says hello
Yes.
to you for that. So there's testimony to the fact you were doing that, which is great. Now on to some questions. We've got one here from Lassie, which is certainly extremely relevant to the food industry that we have here in Hereford and Worcestershire. So in the chat, Lassie is saying, we have lost export business due to Britain becoming global and to red tape. The food industry is the largest manufacturing sector in the UK, and it's widely reported on the issues our industry face. Shortage of general labour, skilled labour, and general lack of understanding of our industry's challenges are the factors there. What policies are the government putting in place to address these issues and getting its largest manufacturing industry back into a position of strength? Now, there's a number of things there, and I imagine you'd probably like to go at it from an international trade point of view.
Yeah, I think there are. I mean, this is actually one of the interesting areas, like much of our work, where we share responsibility for various sectors with other departments. So the Department for DEFRA is the other Department for Environment, Fisheries and Rural Affairs, very much focus on the food and drink agenda. And it is true to say that the sector is a very big one. It's actually one of our best exporting commodities globally, and it's one that we care very, very passionate about. From our point of view, one of the things that we have recently done as part of this sort of rebounding effort that the minister sort of pointed to is start to focus on a number of priority sectors that we think need to be sort of agitated, if you like, to do more overseas, because we're either facing fierce competition, falling behind, or actually we think there's more capability, and food and drink is one of those. So and actually it was there were 7 campaigns that we are promoting. Others are in education. We're also focusing on creative industries and others. But we started to promote the food and drink campaign in February this year. Actually, it was one of the first ones that we did. And there was a sort of a new open doors campaign. These are sort of symbolised by kind of red doors, if I remember rightly, where we're sort of presenting these images in global markets and saying that we can open doors to UK expertise and trade in this area. So we are very much behind the food and drink sector. We've developed a sort of a specific campaign. We know how important it is to that part of the world and other parts of the Midlands, and it's something that we want to engage very much in. I guess the only other point I'll make is at sort of regional level is that we talked about the levelling up specialists that we have. One of the specialists that we have is a food and drink specialist, who covers the Midlands, based in East Midlands, but covers the Midlands and works with locally with the Food and Drink Champion in the West Midlands. And a specific programme that we are promoting is Gulf Food. So Gulf Food, I think, is January next year, I think. Don't quote me on that. I think it's early next year, which is one of the big global affairs in the Middle East. And that is a physical event, and we're treating it very much as a physical event, and we are actively recruiting local businesses to go on to that, and we'll have a Midlands pavilion, and we're currently negotiating with the organizer around trying to present British, not just British food, because there's a British pavilion, but Midlands expertise on that platform. So we're very much behind it, and we're sort of investing kind of our energy and resources in trying to provide a platform for our local businesses to trade internationally.
Thank you, Ian. And I think that's certainly something that we would like to. Fantastic. Thank you, Rory McDonald, for putting that into the chat.
So Rory's a colleague, by the way, so he'll be
that's great.
Stats.
Seamless. That was seamless, and it's certainly something that I think we would all like to get involved in. And the Chamber of Commerce will look at that, and we'll see how we can promote that for you as well, because that's obviously something that we are looking to do. Ladies and gentlemen, any questions that you would like to field? Hands up, or Zoom hands up, or stuff in the chat before I perhaps ask another one. I'm just having a look, and as soon as I start talking, somebody will put their hand up, but they haven't yet. So, Ian, I wonder if you could give us a little bit of background about this Export Academy that you've mentioned a couple of times, and how that works.
Yeah, by all means. I mean, it's really quite an interesting program, and actually, it's if Minister Stewart were here, he would probably be talking about this really quite a lot. It really is getting behind this, and this is a sort of a phased program. It's actually going to kind of grow in its sort of positioning, if you like, in terms of a DRT support offer. But essentially, one of the things that we have realised is that we need to make more resource available for those exporters that want to get into exporting, that don't know how, or don't know where, or where it is a small part of their kind of business plan. And we recognised about a year ago or so, and actually just to coincide with levelling up, that this was a sort of a gap in effectively in our support provision. So we developed this thing called the Export Academy, which is really designed to kind of spearhead some of that rebounding, if you like, in terms of getting exporters, or more businesses exporting. And it's a series of modules, 10 to 15 modules that companies sign up to, and they go from sort of understanding basic export procedures to knowledge of where to export, so market selection, barriers to exporting, rules, regulations, tariffs, how to interpret those, how to look at cultural factors when exporting, right up to finding agents and distributors, and the importance of getting paid in markets as well. And also we look at our support overseas and how you can plug into the international network. And what people do is they go through a series of modules. They can plug and play. We would suggest you go through it sequentially, but business isn't like that necessarily. You can plug and play, and you get to a point where you are at the end of the course. You sort of culminate in an export action plan. And that's the action plan that actually gives you a focus to your energy, because the world by definition is a big place. We all know that. But actually, when you start to export and don't know where to go, you can go down quite a few sort of wrong turns. So we use that, and we use that action plan then to sort of focus our energy and our efforts. You're supported all the way through by Export Academy advisors. So, and what we are doing and we're experimenting with is bringing cohorts of those practitioners, or sorry, participants in together, because we very often there's a sort of peer learning element, particularly in a non-threatening environment. So you don't necessarily need to be in the same sector. We take companies from all sectors on the regional Export Academy program, and so you can learn from each other. And very often businesses like to have that, and we can also use our export champions who are businesses that are exporting in their own right and can feed in. And you come out with a plan, and then you start to engage and you draw on some of our services. The other bit about that is that once you get to a point where you're kind of then experting your business, if you like, and you're more adventurous and more ambitious in your plans, we then plug you into people like Mark and Alison, and I'm quite, I don't know whether they want to make any comments on this, who can then sort of guide you on how to use our services. And that's, we're running programs. We're in a joint program across the Midlands and the east of England, and they're running programs are running now. So if anybody that as a result of this call, or wanting to, general ambition to kind of do more internationally, wants to get in touch, then please use us. Please contact the chamber. Please contact Ali, Mark, or our general sort of. You can find us at great.gov.uk, and we'll put you in touch with the Export Academy program, and hopefully we'll support you on your journey.
Thank you, Ian. Perfect. I think one of the benefits of recording this particular session is that, as the minister said in his video, that some companies don't realise the potential they may have to export and the benefits that might have. So the fact we're recording will allow this video to be seen by perhaps a number of our members who are smaller businesses, and it could just open their eyes to that. And you mentioned the value of working with your peers, and interesting that the structure of your academy is very similar to something called peer networks, which as a chamber we're promoting at the moment for smaller businesses, and that's an opportunity for them there. A couple of questions are coming in, and so I think Alison wanted to. Sorry, Robert, to interrupt. I think Alison wanted to got a hand up. Of course, Alison, hand. My apologies.
Hi, thanks, Ian. Thanks, Robert. We actually, as a department, work with quite a few of the businesses that are on the call today. So haven't met with Lassie for some time, so I can actually fill him in with the information for the Gulf Food, the programme which you referred to earlier on, whereby they can take part in the exhibition, or they can actually send samples and they don't have to exhibit this year at Gulf Food. So I can furnish you with that, Lessa, if that's what you want. And also to add, we have the Great British Food Programme and a platform called England's Finest also, which I would encourage any food and drink businesses to add, and that gives them access to international buyers and also the commercial officers around the embassies and consulates around the world. So I will also furnish the relevant businesses with that information after this call. In terms of the Export Academy, whilst quite a lot of the businesses may be more sort of established, what I would also add is that if you have new members of staff where they have knowledge gaps, you can actually also use the Export Academy. So it's not just for people who are thinking about exporting or are brand new to it, but established ones can actually take advantage of some of the sessions for development of individual people within their businesses. So I just thought that was worth noting.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you very much for that. So we've got a couple of comments coming in here from some of our manufacturing partners. So Chris Woods, I appreciate the focus today is export. However, we, and he suspects other businesses, import a significant proportion of components from the Far East. And the current cost and availability situation around containers risks making us uncompetitive, both domestically and for export. The levels of costs we are seeing are impossible to absorb. What's your view on this situation, Ian, with the ever increasing cost of containers coming across the seas?
It's actually quite an interesting one. It's a lot of our work actually is export orientated actually rather than inward, but I do recognise the importance of kind of importing goods to manufacture and then potentially to export again. And it is a global challenge, and it is something that we are very concerned about. And I guess recent events in the Suez Canal didn't help in terms of kind of pushing up prices. I think the kind of overall position is that we're having to wait for the market to settle. There isn't much we can do given the demand that people have, and I think also COVID has exacerbated the problem. And while that's no sort of solace for any kind of manufacturer, in the medium term, we do expect conditions to stabilise and to become more normal, whatever normal might mean, and that coupled with a growing sort of trade outlook for the UK, hopefully should bring at least more revenue in to offset some of the increasing pricing. But it is a very difficult situation. I know the Department for Transport tracks this very often and very closely, and also customs look at kind of I guess any sort of kind of unfair practices. But it's very difficult for us to provide any kind of definitive sort of action or on this area, given that it is actually a kind of a function of I guess general economic conditions rather than a specific sort of I guess pointed set of actions against the UK. So unfortunately, I'm not able to offer much by way of solace, I'm afraid, other than to sort of say that in general terms, conditions appear to be getting better as the world starts to rebound, and I think what we might find is some of this the demand pressure that's been pent up through various factors kind of reducing a little bit, and hopefully we as an economy start to grow, and that'll offset any kind of pressure that remain.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think it's quite possible that things will settle, but then sometimes I'll come to you, Ali. I'll come to you. I think if you take a rise in house prices, when house prices begin to settle, then they're always slightly higher than they were before there was the spike. Well. So I think we will as a chamber continue to lobby the British Chamber, and I know they'll be knocking on the door on a regular basis, because it is, for so many of our members, there are some quite literally frightening stories of how things have increased in that respect. Ali, do you want to comment on that before I go to Matthias?
Yeah, I mean, I understand, and obviously we've spoken to hundreds of companies over the last 18 months with regard to the changing costs and the additions. But at the Chamber of Commerce, we do offer various services, in particular a new customs declaration service. And we actually, when we've spoken to companies, we're very cost effective, and we've actually been able to review that part, both imports and exports, and actually help them to reduce some of those costs. But so Chris, happy to speak to you if you want to pick this up after the meeting, and the export team and import team here at the Chamber can pick that up with you.
Yeah. I think just as a sort of an additional point, the other point that kind of occurs to us is that it might be that a supply chain review is possibly something to look at as well. That's not always achievable for most companies. Routes are quite established and partners are quite established, but if the issue persists over time, then as I would expect any business to do, it's probably useful then to look again at your sort of supply chains and consider whether this is the optimal, that's the optimal configuration, or whether there's another option. sorry, I think Sharon wants to add.
Oh, sorry, Anne, I didn't want to cut you off. I was just trying to get Robert's attention. But I was just going to ask, it's something we've asked through the British Chamber. I don't know whether it's appropriate for today, but just to raise it to your attention. Is there ever any chance that there would be a price cap put on the shipping container prices? Because it is what maybe is happening in other countries, or is that always out of the question and not something that would ever happen? Just interested, I know we can't give an answer, but just what your view might have been on that.
I actually think that's quite a difficult, that's a very difficult question, but it's also quite a difficult feat to pull off, because it requires quite a lot of intervention in the marketplace, in an international marketplace, and I'm not sure, as in any other sort of market or sector, whether the commercial operators in that sector would appreciate, effectively being capped and their profits being capped. I think it's actually quite difficult in terms of intergovernmental negotiation. I would imagine different countries would have different blocks of, not just individual, but actually blocks of countries would have different stances. And I can imagine the Middle East or Asia Pacific having a particular stance. Eastern Europe, for example, where many of the sort of goods, manufacturing goods come from, having particular views on this, especially if their manufacturers are making a lot of money. If you said, I mean, their economies are growing and benefiting as a result. So it's actually a really difficult question. And I think it's actually, I mean, it maybe it's sort of maybe a G7 question, actually. It's actually of that order, where governments, or World Trade Organization question, where World Trade rules change, and then the sort of practices presented. But I think it'd be a very difficult one to pull off, if I'm honest. And I think this is actually about market dynamics, about supply and demand, and sort of pressures that are exacerbated by kind of COVID sort of issues.
Thank you, Ian. Thanks, Sharon. I think in extraordinary times, extraordinary things sometimes happen, don't they? So I think we'll keep floating that idea as often as we possibly can. So fair play. Matthias, you've been waiting patiently. Please do go ahead and make your comments, and obviously turn them into some questions as well. Thank you.
Okay. Good morning. Thanks for inviting me. Ian, background is I'm the managing director of Heller Machine Tools. We are one of the leading producers of CNC machining centers in the world. As you can see from the name, we've got a German headquarters where I'm currently sitting here at the moment. And we have a production facility in Redditch. And I have to say, I very much welcome the efforts of Britain to find new markets. But one thing I have to say is now after 8 months of having Brexit, the frictionless border has cost us a 6-digit number. So it can't be that frictionless then. And what I don't understand, hopefully the government can have an approach for that. I think how we do business with Europe, the border constraints, import and export need to be revisited, because if this continues, I don't know which companies which have currently got added value in the UK and still trading with the EU. And don't get me wrong, we speak about supply chains. You can't just change the supply chain as you want, because you have got priority parts. I can only get a Siemens control where Siemens is producing them. I can get only high precision part, especially in the manufacturing and advanced technology area, where they produce them. We have got a very good one in the UK with Renishaw, but Renishaw is not like the world market leader for everything. So your supply chain is always constrained by your suppliers, and either you deal with them or you don't do it anymore at all. So I really urgently require from the government revisit, regardless of Brexit, our relationship when it comes to frictionless border, because as I said, it's not frictionless at all. And I mean, we are a medium-sized company. If I tell you this cost us a significant 6-digit number, it's not something which we have just like in our savings account or so, oh, thanks very much, not a problem. That's my comment.
Thank you, Matthias.
Well, thank you for the question and the comments. I think it's something that we've heard quite a lot about, and is unfortunately a consequence of the transition, or appears to be a consequence of the transition that we have recently gone through. There are, and actually, I mean, generally, I think trade has dropped with Europe. And just by the way, we talk about quite a lot of the supporting emerging markets and growing markets. That's not at the cost of Europe. I think it's really quite important just to kind of re-emphasize that. Europe is our biggest market. It has been for the last 30, 40 years, and it will continue to be. It's close, it's accessible, we know, and it's familiar, and we know how to do business with Europe. So that doesn't mean that we are not going to do business with Europe, and sometimes that can be confused. And actually, we are as conscious as you are of the challenges that the change in agreements has caused, and certainly our people, when we talk about 190 people overseas, we're in the 50 or so 27 markets in Europe. So there are people in France and Germany and sort of are all trying to make sure that we can continue the excellent relationships that we have. But you're right, we kind of there have been some challenges in terms of not being in Europe that we are still continuing to address. I think it's an ongoing process, and certainly we've had experience, the guys will probably tell you that there's been different interpretations of at the border of movement of goods. France in particular has been a big issue because that's very often the great way into Europe with this, and we've had different interpretation in different markets. I think it's something that's not lost in us. It is something that we continue to monitor, and in fact, actually, one of the things that we ask the teams to do, Mark and Alison to do, where they come up against this issue, is to make sure that they're highlighting it to us so that we can inform policy. Unfortunately, DIT isn't the only department that's sort of involved here. Cabinet Office are leading that current discussion on sort of, I guess, not renegotiating, but refining the current arrangements that have been put in place, making sure that that we are getting the best for Britain. But there are challenges, and I think it's we have to face up to that. We are looking at new programs, both in the UK and in Europe, and our Europe team are working very closely on this to see whether there is more that we can do as a department to try and smooth out some of these, what I'm calling imperfections, but that would be sort of discourteous, if you like, to you as a business who's lost money from this. But there is increasing attention being paid to this issue, and we will make sure that certainly your comments, and I think you go to Make UK meetings as well. You're part of Make UK, and I know Make UK have had various representations on these issues as well, and make sure that these are all in sort of taken account of and in policy terms, and try to as we try to resolve them. I don't know whether anybody else has any comments to make, but it's actually quite a difficult area, and it's one I say we are conscious of, and we're trying to resolve.
Thank you, Ian. Matthias, do you want to come back in?
Just one comment.
Yeah.
Someone needs to make a step forward. When we get goods from the EU on a truck, we get a thick file of documents because we build machines here, so we've got hundreds of different parts, and that just costs money.
Yes.
I think this is, someone in this process needs to make a step forward. We're just waiting for each other, and I mean both right now, EU and UK. It will continue, and some businesses will make different decisions. I mean, sending goods now is one thing. Is of what was said beforehand, the supply chain with, like, when you come to container, but also in the way of what we heard about trucks and things like this is anyway now more a buyer's market than a seller's market. So definitely the prices go up. But on top, the administration cost, and if we are not getting a step closer there very quickly, a few companies will make different decisions at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's one thing that we pay, I don't know, £50 for a declaration of certain things. If you multiply this each time, it costs a lot of money. But then at the end of the day, you've got all the process internally with, you know, we didn't need to employ those people to do those things in the past, and it cost us really efficiency.
Yeah, I think Alison mentioned the customs declaration service. So you're feeling the pressure. This is the pressure inward rather than outward. So that's the way you're feeling the pressure, isn't it? So there's nothing that we're
to be honest,
able to
outward
do.
is the easiest for us. We have got. I mean, about outward, I'm not concerned. I've got one machine goes on a truck. Yes, we have definitely challenges with country of origin, but we are getting there. But because it's one material at the end of the day, it's a bit easier, but we get hundreds of them in, and that is really, really difficult.
Yeah, understood.
Good stuff. Thank you for that. So,
but for me, as I said, I have to say, when we all have these discussions, I think food is a bit sometimes different if you grow something, but overall, if you speak about manufacturing, import is export. You will never be able in manufacturing, when it comes to technology, to have purely an export market.
Yeah.
If you do something at technology, it's the same in Germany, it's everywhere. It's always a combination between import and export and added value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great stuff. Thanks, Matthias. Thank you for that, and Ian, thanks for taking those questions. Examples of best practice, questions, comments that any of the assembled would like to make on this subject? While you're thinking about that, because I know you are, I will ask Ian a question that he's mentioned in terms of the Minister mentioned the internationalisation, Midlands internationalisation. Would you be able to tell us a little bit more about that?
I can do, and actually then I'd probably then invite Mark and Ali to kind of say a few words as well on this. But yes, so again, this is part of our rebounding kind of series of programs, if you like, and we're actually quite fortunate to have a regional fund, a Midlands fund, that is supported by all of the local enterprise partnerships of £6.3 million that is open, I believe, until November 2022, and within this fund, companies from across the Midlands can apply to get a grant of between £1,000 and £9,000, which is match funded by the company. So a grant of £9,000 requires a match funding amount of £9,000, and this grant can help that company internationalise. You access the grant through your trade advisor, and it can be through a range of things. So it can fund consultancy support, it can fund website optimization, it can support businesses going on trade missions or engaging in trade activity, IP and so on. So there are a range of things it can support, and it also requires the production of a plan. And the reason we ask for the production of a plan is not to create a hassle for the company, but it's to focus the energy of the company to get the best outcome. So we help to shape that through the sort of work that we do with Mark and Alison and team there at the Chamber. Mark, Alison, just do you, rather than sort of hearing all of the answers from me, do you want to come in on that, just to kind of give a bit more?
I'll just say a few words for me. Yeah, I think one of the differences between this particular fund and past funds is that actually companies can put together multifaceted projects. So the funding could take into account, for example, 4 or 5 different activities over a longer period than has been the case otherwise. And actually that can be then dovetailed into a bigger overarching international business plan that the company might have. Ian, you mentioned the range of activities. I think certainly in my experience, the range of eligible activities that a company can use this funding for is significantly bigger than it has been previously as well. So it's not just the front end stuff around marketing, travel, exhibitions, digital marketing and so on, but it can also be used for more technical parts, like buying consultancy, for example. It could be around IP, it could be research, it could be legal or financial advice as well. So it is an interesting, and I think, you know, really very good value for money. I would say that, of course, wouldn't I? But actually, I think this time it enables a company to put together a more coherent, longer-term project with different parts to it. And in the past, it's only been a one-off funding exercise. So that, and I think that generates over a period, you know, and it's called internationalization because actually it turns the business into a more international business across different parts of it. So that's what I'd like to add to that particular funding.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for that. And I think for those that might be watching this as a recording, there's another example of how perhaps smaller businesses may well be able to look at import-export for the first time, and that does make up a big proportion of membership across our counties. So useful support, and there's nothing wrong with promoting that service indeed. So good, fantastic. I'm glad we did that, and I hope that can be beneficial. So in the minutes remaining, have we got any final questions before we wrap up? No, we haven't. So that's great stuff.
I would.
Oh yes, Lasse, thank you. Come on in.
Sorry, yeah, I can't figure out how to raise my hand. I got one last question I would like to ask. It's great that we got all the support on the, you know, smaller businesses, and we can get grants and so forth, which is important for some. But we just heard Matthias talk about his challenges, and you know, I can mirror all the challenges sitting on our side with getting product in, product out, finding the right product, and so forth. If I turn around and said for Christmas, I need 500 to 600 people in the 2 months that leads up to Christmas, which I do not have access to at the moment. These are some of the real issues that some of us are dealing with. And grants are not going to sort that. Yeah. As Matthias said, dialogue needs to resolve that. And the last little thing I would like to just leave here with Ian before he leaves is that we have some serious challenges ahead of us if we're going to succeed, because we can't do any export because we can't make it happen in the UK in the first place with some of the challenges we have. So at this moment in time, it's enough challenge just to keep ourselves going within the domestic market. And I think some of these things needs to be understood and taken serious, and they're not going to be resolved with anybody getting a grant when you get to, you know, and don't take this the wrong way, some of the largest employers that Matthias would be one of them, and we would be one of them, that require something different. I would very much like Ian to kind of, if he has the time, maybe even come out and see us, and we will talk to him about the challenges we have, if that can help bring a message back to the colleagues in Westminster, and help grease the wheels a little bit. Because at this moment in time, for me, and I get the sense of feeling from Matthias, it feels like we're in a total standstill and possibly going backwards.
Yeah, so thank you, let's say, for the last, I think it's for that comment. I think yeah, very happy to come and see you. It's sort of you know, part of the role is to kind of engage and understand what businesses are doing. So very happy to do that. I think it's important just to kind of and I mentioned this earlier on, that we work very closely with other departments, and of course, you know, our part of the growth journey is only a part of the journey. You know, you've got to be domestically secure, and before you can do business. And one of the things we don't want to do is work with businesses that aren't ready to trade for whatever reason, whether that's sort of, you know, a capacity problem, or it's a growth problem, or whatever the reason. So, you know, we work very often, very much with others, and of course, I would sympathise with you if you can't get the labour. I presume it's a labour shortage question that is your point, that to produce your products. Then, you know, it's not possible to export. And I kind of recognise that. And what we do also do is to, you know, pass on these comments to other departments that have that role of building your domestic business. And it's really quite important that we hear these comments and that we're able to feed them in, because it isn't just our work. And we've very much I won't say a Cinderella service, but we very much come under the end when you're growing and you're outward looking and you're capable and you're looking for other markets. But it'd be foolish for us to recognise that actually you need a solid industrial base here in the UK.
And I think so. Sorry for interrupting you, and I think it's probably worth adding here that I've lost, by the time we finish this year, that would have cost me in the region of 10 to 12 million pounds worth of export sales that I've lost that I had last year.
Well,
it's not small numbers, and that's why I say you can't look at the export in isolation. You got to look at you got to look at the whole picture across all the different departments and come up with a coherent policy that addresses all the elements of it. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to deliver it.
Yes. No, agree. I mean, I think that sounds like a major challenge. And as I say, something, if you're happy to sort of let us know what those challenges are, we'll try and put those thoughts back to the right department. And the other thing that strikes me is the LEP, March's LEP as well, should be sort of understanding some of your issues and seeing whether they're able to help as well. But I'm quite happy to do whatever we can within our scope to kind of connect you to the right sources to help produce a sort of more comprehensive package to you, so that you can then ultimately export, which is the thing that we want you to do very much.
Thank you very much, Lassie. Thank you for that. And I think what we've proved is there's some significant examples of some major issues, and we will pick those up. And I know there's already been some interaction with Arjun and the policy team with the British Chamber on a number of those points. So we will ensure that we keep that moving forward. I'm conscious of the time. A couple of people are dropping off because they've probably got their 12:30 appointment. So I'm going to bring it to a close. Ian, can I extend a huge thank you to you and to your team from everybody at the Chamber of Commerce for taking the time to come and talk to us today. I think the conversation will certainly continue, and we'll welcome to be able to have that conversation. So thank you to your team. Will you please extend our thank yous to the Minister as well for that valuable contribution, which I think we will we'll certainly benefit from having that on this recording. Arjun's been behind the scenes. He's put us all together today. These events don't happen. They have to be organised, and they need to get people on the Zoom room. So Arjun, thank you for all your efforts there. And to the Department of Trade team that we have in the Chamber for all the work that they do in the international arena. As a Chamber, we fully appreciate what you do. So thank you for your contributions today and your ongoing support to all the members. And a massive thank you to those that have taken the time to come and attend this particular event. I think we've covered large, small and medium-sized businesses and some huge challenges and some opportunities to grow. Thank you for fielding those questions, everybody. Questions and answers don't work without questions, so I appreciate your input. And to conclude, I wish you all good health. I wish you all good luck, and I hope safe transits with all your goods and services across the globe. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the sunshine. See you soon. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Good luck all.